There it is. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Charlie Capen, fearless leader here at Momentus. We're really excited today to have our chat. You're all filing in here. A few quick orders of business before we get started. The chat is open. We'd love to hear where you're from and what kind of storytelling is your favorite, whether it's books or radio plays or just doing a play in your backyard. The Q&A box is also now open. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A box and ask your questions, as the chat will become a waterfall and we won't be able to find them. So definitely use that Q&A box and we'll get those questions, hopefully some of those questions answered at the end. If you have a meet and greet, just stick around right here. If this is your first time, we're just gonna begin immediately following the class. We've got a real treat today, a conversation about storytelling with two amazing guests who have spent their lives crafting, living, and at times surviving wild stories themselves. And we're gonna be talking about what inspires them and how they approach creativity and what they think makes a story really stick with people, plus whatever delightful rabbit holes we end up falling down together. So we're just here to help dig. So let's just jump right in. We're gonna bring Anne and Will in here. Let's go. Hello, Louise. Hello from New York. Hey.
Hello. Hello, Internet.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
From our living room. Hi, what's up, Netherlands? I love that you're coming in from Europe. That's amazing.
Hello. We're so excited for you guys today. Anne and Will, we're so excited to dig in. I'm going to let you do your thing. People are stoked in the chat. Have a great one.
Thanks. First, I do have to say that we were so excited just now when everyone was chiming in that our dog came running in to see what was happening.
We knew that there would be some Marlo participation in this today, just because she wants to be wherever we are. I didn't think that it was going to come up right away. So
she was like looks like she's a little here.
It looks like she's a little off camera. Hey, would you fix the Chiron so that Anne's name has an E at the end of it? Just so that it looks like that's off a little bit. Okay, now Marlo's had enough and she's leaving. Hey, so we're gonna talk about our approach to storytelling. My experience with events like this indicates that we'll talk about storytelling for a very brief time, and then we'll spin out into whatever is on your mind. I moderated a panel yesterday at the LA Times Festival of Books, and some of you know that I hosted the Ready Room for 5 years, so I have a bit of experience doing this. It is Anne Wheaton's first time doing anything like this, so I'm going to play the role of host to my wife and get us going. We have a few questions just to sort of get us started before yours arrive, and we're going to start right there. Because I am playing Mr. Host, Anne Wheaton, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
I think it would be great if you would just show the folks at home your book. Show them your book and
my book, Piggy and Pug. Do I need to bring it closer? Can you see it? I love it.
Anne has written Piggy and Pug. I'll let her tell you all about it. I'll tell you that for me, my highest profile work of writing is my memoir, Still Just a Geek. But I've written a ton of short stories and an unpublished novella. And as we have been preparing for this, I've actually been thinking a lot about what it is that pulls us back to sit down like at the machine and make it work when there's 100 million other things that we want to do, when we just aren't feeling it and it still has to get done. Before we get there, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning and talk about some of the stories you experienced as a little girl that inspired you, that captured your attention and imagination, and fueled you telling your own story when you wrote Piggy and Pug.
Well, Piggy and Pug is actually inspired by two specific situations. The first one was when I was 5. I was walking home from a friend's house, which is also really weird, but I guess it was the 70s. But I was 5 walking home by myself.
We are the feral generation. Feral, it is extremely common for us to be out 12 hours at a time, and our parents just kind of presumed we weren't dead.
Yeah, because it was definitely not like next door. It was probably 6 houses away. Anyway, I'm walking home from her house, and this orange tabby cat started following me. So he followed me all the way home, and I asked my parents if we could keep him, and my mom said, no, he probably belongs to somebody. So I was able to put a little dish of food and water out on the front porch for him. And I still have the dish. It has Cinderella in the bottom because I saved it because of him.
Of course you did.
So I fed him and I put a little blanket out, and he stayed on the porch overnight. The next day, my mom went and asked around the neighborhood to see if anyone knew who the cat belonged to. And some people up the street said that he belonged to a family that moved away and left him. So my 5-year-old brain was immediately like, oh my God, this cat had a family who abandoned him, and he went out in search of a new family. So I'm going to be that for him. And then that just kind of fueled my whole childhood of seeing animals in need and wanting to help them. And then the other thing that was inspiration was, I don't remember how, I mean, I guess it was at least 20, 25 years ago. We had a detached garage and at our old house, and sometimes the kids would leave the door propped open. And I went out one morning and I heard meowing, and I was just like, hello, because it was in the garage somewhere. And he just came cruising out, and it was this black and white cat. The breed was a Japanese bobtail. So he had like a longer, skinny, almost like Egyptian cat looking face. And he had like this little nub of a tail that went over his back, and he would wag it. And he was super cute.
We named him Felix.
We named him Felix.
If you followed my blog back then, he's Felix the bear. I don't know how many of you have been around since then, but he was
a badass.
He was a super badass, and it's like he chose us.
Yeah.
He just showed up in our garage that morning.
Well, and the reason why he chose us, I mean, he was 4 at the time. His front claws had been removed. And
Which is horrible, by the way.
Yeah. And I went around asking the neighborhood and found out people like 3 blocks up from us moved away and left him. And I stayed outside with him as much as I could because we already had 2 indoor cats. And as the week went on, he did not look well. And it turned out he had kidney disease. And I don't know if that's why the other owners left him. But again, another animal who had a family who left him, and he went out in search of another one. So between the 2 of them, it was my inspiration that I knew like someday I wanted to write a book about their experience and my experience because of it, and inspire empathy and compassion in little kids and learning to help others that need help. And of course, because animals are freaking great.
One of the things if I can translate, one of the things Anne's talking about as it relates to storytelling is, as a storyteller, I look for something that matters to me, something that I want to talk about. And I want to talk about it in a way that doesn't feel like I'm sitting you down and you're getting a talking to, or that you're sitting at a lecture where I'm like, these are the things that are important to me. And I remember when you were talking about Piggy and Pug, that you wanted to tell this story about rescuing animals and about building your found family, which is something we did, right?
Yeah.
Anne had kids when I met her, and I ended up becoming their stepdad. And then at different times in their adult lives, they asked me to adopt them, and I legally became their dad, which is awesome. I want to brag on our son for just a moment. Our son Ryan yesterday, day before yesterday, successfully defended his master's thesis, and is about to get going in earnest on his PhD. We're so insanely proud of him.
We raised a kid that's going to be a doctor.
He's going to be a doctor, and it's so freaking cool. It's just
That's right,
Yes.
baby.
Okay. I'm going to answer my own question. What were some of the earliest stories that made me fall in love with storytelling? The first thing that I remember is this episode of The Twilight Zone. I think it's called Night Call. And in this episode, there is an elderly woman who is confined to her bed, and she's awful, and she's angry, and she's miserable. And we've come to find out that she's really lonely. Her husband has died, and she misses him so much that she can't even do anything except be mad about it. And there's a storm, and her phone starts ringing, and there's just static on the end, and this becomes increasingly intense, and she gets really freaked out. And finally she's like, "Stop calling me, leave me alone, don't ever call me again." And the voice comes up on the other end of the line and is like, "Okay, I'm sorry, I love you," or something like that. We come to find out that the phone line has fallen into the grave of her
Oh my
departed
God, I
husband.
remember that one.
And she's super bummed about it.
Chills.
I loved that story so much. I was a little kid, and I had my first experience with a word processing program on a computer. I was probably 11 or 12. And I just wrote it, right? Like, I wrote it the way that you would write a novel, because I read lots of books, and I just sort of copied what their story was, and then as a little kid told it in my own way, which is something that's really important, that I want everyone who is interested in storytelling to really, really hear. When you're starting out, even when you've been doing it for a while, it is so massively okay for you to straight up steal something from somebody else to practice. I am not saying you should go plagiarize something from someone else. That's extremely not okay. But it's totally awesome and a great idea. And the stakes are zero for you to take something that you love and set your own characters in it. Maybe I'm talking about fan fiction a little bit right now. Hi, Marla, you want to come back up? Come on, babe. Come on, come touch. Okay, there you go. You got it. If like 11 and 12-year-old me could do that, there is no reason that fully functioning adult, any of you do it. I see Charlie is mentioning Austin Kleon's book. I was in a Slack with Austin for years and found him to be incredibly inspiring, and one of those people who loves artists and wants to encourage and nurture artists.
His book, Show Your Work, really helped me.
Yeah.
Because I created a Piggy and Pug Instagram account because of that book, but I also didn't do it in real time when I was creating, because what he talks about is the importance of like showing your process. But because my process took like a year and 4 months, I was like, I don't want to make a post and then there's silence for 4 months. But his book was super helpful.
When did you decide? When was the moment, I'm writing this book? Do you remember when that happened?
I do. I had actually been feeling like I wanted to do something creative, and I felt kind of stuck. And I know this is not something that everyone can do, but I know also you don't have to go away to do something like this now. But what I did was took myself on like a little week. Was it a week long that I went?
Mm-hmm.
I actually left on, it was, because I left on Mother's Day. And I went up to this place up in Big Sur, just to like, I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. And I want to figure out a way to be creative. And there was they were calling it the painting experience. And I was like, I want to learn how to paint. And it ended up being this whole thing of like, paint your feelings. And I was like, what? But it was great because it was just this like, this way to just sort of like express yourself, like anything that you were feeling. And I ended up finding that a lot of things were like stuck in me, like holding me back. And it was really weird, and it felt kind of like a weird hippie thing to do, but it was amazing. And then by the time the end of the week rolled around, I felt so good and so inspired to do a ton of stuff. And I drove up there, and then the whole drive home down from Big Sur down to LA, I thought of the entire story for Piggy and Pug.
Yeah.
Because it was both Pug was searching for a family and Piggy was searching for a friend, which I think in my own childhood, like that's kind of what I was searching for. So I got the two of them in one story. And then I came home and spent over a year doing that, which was pretty cool.
I remember when Anne was working on developing this and just had this idea. And I remember you had a whiteboard.
Yes.
And there were Post-its everywhere.
Because I didn't know what I was doing. But that's, I mean, because I know when you do it, you have like a whole system with your computer and your drafts and all that stuff.
Ish. It's not organized the way a professional person who knows what they're doing is organized.
But it was definitely more organized than what I did.
It's a chaotic experience that I can understand, that I can follow around like one of those scientists where everybody in the lab is like, it would be great if you could just follow the standards. And this particular scientist is like, no, my head sees 11 dimensions at once.
Well, when I did mine, I actually did, I did write it out on the computer, but I had to ask you multiple times. I was like, I don't know how to start this. And you were basically like, just write it all down and then you'll start to see the story. So it was probably like more than twice the length that it actually ended up being, because I literally put everything in there. And then I sort of like was able to narrow down and kind of define exactly what I wanted the story to be. And then the whiteboard came in when I found an artist and I needed to do a storyboard. And I was like, what's a storyboard?
Do a layout, yeah.
And so my whiteboard was stick figures of a storyboard. So my artist knew what I wanted.
I will sometimes make a story map if I have a bunch of things going on at one time. So I just know when the scene that I'm not working on, I know that's what's happening in parallel to what's happening there.
Is it a map like hockey playoffs? Like brackets?
It's definitely a playoff tree.
Okay.
No, it actually looks more like a crazy conspiracy theorist's corkboard with string all over it.
Oh, wow.
Because it mostly exists inside my head. It is a mess in here. You do not want to walk in here. It's awful for everyone involved. When I started working on Dead Trees Give No Shelter, I knew that I wanted to tell a story about loss. And that's all I knew when I started writing this. This is a story that I love, that I'm really proud of. Thanks. I think it's technically a novelette. I don't know. And I did a limited number of hardbacks that flew away. They sold so fast. I was so happy about that. There's a copy of it around here somewhere.
The top shelf.
But anyway, this story was about loss, and I knew that I kind of had this vague idea that I was going to take this person who had experienced a terrible loss and put him in a place where he could try to process the loss, which is what I was going through in my life. My younger brother, after a lifetime of a very difficult relationship, got really angry at me and told me that I was dead to him. And then everyone in the family except my sister said it was my fault and I was supposed to go make it all okay. And I was like, that's not how any of this works. And the loss was so intense. And I felt it and the gaslighting from our mother made it so much worse. The way that I processed this and got through it was to take all of the feelings that I had and map them onto this character and put him through these experiences that I felt like I was going through. And then I brought in these supernatural elements just because I like magical realism. What I hope the takeaway from these two little vignettes is that when each of us started on our work, we had ideas, right? We had broad ideas, but they were such a long way away from being the things we finally published. And this came up yesterday at the Festival of Books. And I think that it's a really important thing for all of us who are storytellers to remember, we never really know entirely. It's so rare. Like every now and then something springs into your mind fully formed and you just race and try to catch up and get it written before the idea runs away from you. But most of the time, there's a very broad concept. I want to talk about this. And then I start breaking down, how can I get into that? How can I most effectively communicate that? And when I get lost, and it happens on every single thing that I do, when I write myself into like a cul-de-sac and then for some reason cannot find my way out of the cul-de-sac, what I have to do is just back up and take everything out. And every single time I realize that has happened because I wandered away from what this is about. That is not to say that you can't take little journeys and little side trips and like little walks into the kitchen of your creative house in the middle of your story. That's super important. But when you're doing that, it's still moving your primary narrative and your readers toward exactly that place that you saw really far away on a very, very distant horizon when you had the idea.
I know when I wrote mine, I probably had you read it 20 different times until I narrowed it down. And I've done that a bunch on yours as well. Even from your very first Dancing Barefoot.
Yeah, we sat in a booth at Mimi's Cafe in Monrovia.
Monrovia, that's right.
I had printed out the entire manuscript. This was the first thing I wrote. So like for a bit of history, 20 years ago,
I think it was more than that.
I was at this point, 20 years ago could mean 5 years ago. It could mean it could mean Monday.
Yeah.
It could mean the 90s. Like it's just all freaking over the place, right?
The 90s, because that's more than 20 years ago.
I know. That's what we met, babe.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So we were sitting there, and I had to take it to a print shop to print out because it was too much for my inkjet printer to handle.
Yeah.
Remember that? And we sat down, and Anne had a copy in front of her, and I had a copy in front of me, and we each had pens in our hands. And we ate pancakes, and I just read it. I remember read it out loud and made notes and changed it and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a really inefficient process, but it was a lovely.
But we were the editors.
Yeah, we were. It was such a fun way to like get started on that. I guess it's just another way of saying there is no wrong way to get started, and nobody knows what they're doing the first time they go through it. Like you absolutely are going to find your own way to tell a story.
Even if it ends up being a whiteboard. Yeah. I printed mine out and actually cut the little sections of the story out and taped it to the squares on the whiteboard for what part of the story was going with the image.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, because like.
Was I doing Wil Wheaton Project when you were doing this?
2017.
Is that when that was? The reason I bring that up is that I remember, when you're setting up a TV show, you have different blocks in the TV show, and usually our show had 5 blocks, and you have the blocks are all like these tall vertical columns, and you write down what the bit is on an index card, and you put them up in the blocks. I'm sure you've seen this on TV shows. And you put the cards up so you can move things around. You get an overview of what things are, so you don't have 2 beats that are too similar right next to each other. So sometimes if something is repeating something from earlier, you punch it up so it becomes a callback and not something that's derivative. Louise, I'm typewriter years old.
Oh my God.
Oh man, remember when you were a little kid and they had those typewriters, like your tall typewriter, your Underhill typewriter, and they were like so hard to type with your little kid fingers.
Oh yeah, my pinkies especially would get really
yeah, right. And you weren't strong enough to do it. Print shop banners on the dot matrix printer. Yeah. God, I loved print shop when that was a new thing. There are some really good questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
And I thought that we could answer them. We'll start up here with Gwen's question. What do you feel makes a character resonate with the reader? To me, this is going to be different for every single person. I look for something in all of my characters that is real and what?
Just distracted by
sorry.
Marlo's
licking her foot over here. And something you need to know about Anne Wheaton is there are two sounds that Anne hates more than anything in the world.
Ice crunching in your skull.
Whenever I crunch things in my mouth, that can be pretzels last night, ice all the time, carrots,
raw carrots.
Boy, does she hate it when I eat raw carrots. And then the other thing is Marlo just like licking her foot. Marlo's like an old lady now, and she gets a little anxious. Hey, babe.
Marlo.
Thank you.
There we go.
And boy, does she do that when she gets
especially in the middle of the night, just like lick.
Yeah.
Lick.
Okay, so your characters will relate with, like, the audience is gonna like resonate with a character when they see something familiar in it. So this is a trick that every writer does, and I don't think every writer will admit to it. Every character we ever write is based on a person we've encountered in our lives at one point or another. That's just what you do. You just take that memory. Sometimes characters are a mosaic of other people and other experiences, but you keep things grounded and real. They don't have to be likable. A lot of characters can't be likable. It wrecks the narrative. They just have to be real. So when you're working on how you're going to make your character accessible to people, you have to just think about, as a reader, what would I be missing right now if it were not here? And it will take you a number of swings, a number of at-bats to get comfortable with that and find what works specifically for you. A thing that I have learned as I've tried so hard to do this, I was on this panel yesterday with like incredibly accomplished #1 New York Times bestselling authors, and I'm not a #1 bestselling author, #1 bestselling audiobook narrator, but not a #1 bestselling author.
That's true.
Yeah. And look, being a New York Times bestselling author is awesome, and we were all in that club, and it felt really, really great. But as we were up there, I just kept feeling like, I'm the imposter up here. Like, what was that thing from, was it Electric Company or Sesame Street, where this guy's doing his own thing and it was a song? And
one of these things is
not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. That was me. Because, like, I'm a memoirist, right?
Sesame Street?
Someone at Sesame Street. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
You.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Louise. Yeah, Sesame Street, which PS really needs to be defended and supported. Call your representatives.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I haven't written as much as these guys have, obviously, and I don't know that I ever will. But we all kind of do the same thing. We all sort of have these moments of like, I don't know what comes next until I do. What everyone talked about is when we hit these moments where we don't quite know where we're supposed to go, when we feel really lost in our creative process. This is speaking strictly as a writer. I don't know how this works for other types of art, but specifically for writing, for me, when I am like completely lost and stuck, it's because I've literally lost the plot. I've wandered off away from what this thing was supposed to be about. And that is my like internal editor just looking at those pages and saying, sorry, man, I don't know where this is going. You got to come back. And that helps me keep my characters relatable and helps me keep my story focused.
I do have to say, though, I remember that one thing that you said to me was that you write, like, if you are unsure, you just write what you know, which is essentially what you're saying in characters, whether they're shitty people or whatever.
Yeah.
So write what you know. And then one of the other things which comes up, which someone did actually mention about imposter syndrome, is that you can't worry about, is someone else going to like this? because I remember you even saying this to the kids when they were young, that to do something, you do it for you. You do it, you tell the story that you want, that you would have wanted at some point in your life or whatever, and the right people will find it. Because if all you're trying to do is make everyone happy, the one who will definitely be unhappy is yourself. So you have to just do it for you. My book is 100% for 5-year-old me. And then it did find an audience. I even found adults, met adults who found it and loved it because it spoke to something in themselves. Like, we are humanity. We all have very connected, similar experiences. So even if you're writing about something that you feel like, oh my God, no one's going to get this, they are going to get it. And you just write about what you know.
That's a really good reminder. It dovetails off of the the reality that there's only, I think, 7 different fundamental stories that people tell.
Yeah.
I was writing a story for a Star Trek manga. Gosh, the kids were still in school when I did that. That was probably 20 years ago. It's probably 20 years ago.
The kids have not been in school for the last 15 years, definitely.
So I was working on this story, and I wanted to tell a story about the moment that the Klingon Empire began to change. In the original Star Trek series, the Klingon Empire is very much inspired by like Japanese Bushido culture, and the Klingons are kind of like, they're like 3 or 4 notes, on an instrument. By the time Next Generation rolls around, they're very complicated, and we see that they have become this bureaucratic sort of like a Game of Thrones student government kind of thing, right? And I was like, what happened that made them kind of that like switched the Klingon Empire and changed their culture? So I started writing a story just sort of about something like that would have happened. And I was like, okay, Captain Kirk and a Klingon commander are trapped in a mine, and it's collapsing, and there's a monster that threatens both of them, and they have to work together. And I had been on it for a couple of weeks, and the deadline was speeding towards my face. And that's when I realized what a whole lot of you have realized. Oh, Will, you're writing Enemy Mine. This is literally a movie from the 80s, and you're just writing that movie. And I was like, well, fuck my life. I guess I have to completely start over. And I called my editor at Tokyo Pop and told him, and so this is what I remember. I called and left a voicemail for Lewis, and then I called my friend, who was also my editor at the time, my friend Andrew, may his memory be a blessing. And I asked, I was like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Andrew had edited everything I had ever done, and was such a trusted voice to like talk to and bounce ideas off of. And I remember that I was like, I think I really screwed up here, and I'm really just like, what am I going to do? And it was Andrew who said, you're just telling one of the 7 stories. It's 2 men trapped on an island. Like that goes all the way back to the Iliad. Like, you didn't steal anything. If you stole anything, it's that you grabbed a massive idea out of like the creative ether and made it your own. It ended up being a really great story, and I really liked it, and the people who read it really liked it. And it would have been a whole lot more fun for me to do if I had not made the choice to like crucify myself for like the entire rewrite process, where I realized that it was my dad's voice in my head telling me how bad at this that I was.
Yeah. I did see someone mention having an inner critic.
Yeah.
And when you mention that, I think a good thing to remember is not to talk to yourself in a way you would not allow someone else to talk to you. And
Yeah.
that is a hard thing to work through, because so much of it, you're even for yourself talked about like having your dad's voice, but and that is a whole separate topic of working to get all those other voices out and just listen to yourself.
One of the real great benefits of being committed to creative expression is finding within myself those things that are painful, those things that I've always sort of used to sort of like cut myself, and turn them into just fuel to make my creative fire go. I remember once, and we'll get on to another question right after this, but I just remember, because this is a thing that you told me, and I think this is really important. We were standing in the kitchen over there, and I was so upset with myself. I'd done something that was just stupid, you know, and very much not a big deal, a very inconsequential thing. But I was really beating the shit out of myself for just how I was so upset with myself. I was like disappointed, and I was embarrassed, and I was so mad about it. And I was like, oh, I'm so stupid, or something like that. I remember, and looks at me, and I remember, and you said, you know, it hurts me when you talk to yourself like that. I don't like to hear you talk to yourself like that. I would not let another person talk to you like that. And I was like, geez, you're right. And since then, I've been really great about not talking to myself in that way. It's a really good thing. If maybe, I hope somebody needs to hear that, and I hope that you take it home. Let's move on. Lisa asks, when you get to a point where you've been working on something for a few weeks and then suddenly read it and realize it's doggy poopy, do you scrap it and start over, or try to revive it? That is such a great question. And that is something that literally every single person who does any art ever, whether it's with words or clay or paint or Lego, like every single one of us experiences. I've had the microphone for a really long time. So why don't you talk about what you do when that happens? And then I'll talk about.
I was not snapping my finger at you. I was snapping at.
And then I'll talk about. I didn't even notice you were snapping.
Oh yeah. So I'm talking about. Well, I know, because I started to teach myself how to paint a few years ago, that when you're working on something that you like have a certain vision in your head, and then when it's out, whether it's on paper, on canvas, whatever, and it's not what's in your head, just taking a step back from it. There's a painting that I walked away from for several months, and then went back to, because sometimes you get too close to it. And if you can like literally and figuratively take a step back from it, find ways to just, I don't know, think about other things, go on a big old walk, do other stuff, whatever. And then when you come back to it, you really see it with like different eyes. And I think a big part of that is because when you're so close to it, you're looking at it with judgmental eyes. You're like criticizing it too much. And when you can take a step back and look at it at a different time, and your brain is in a different place, I feel like that makes a huge difference.
Like, you can look at a statue, right? A beautifully sculpted statue, and you can choose to see the beautifully sculpted statue, or you can see the flaws in the marble. Like, the flaws in the marble are there no matter what. You shape around them, and then they become a fundamental, integral part of the final work. When I'm writing, I used to give myself a per day word count. I need to do 1,000 words today. I need to do 1,500 words today, whatever it is. And that works for some people. It absolutely does not work for me, because that is a target. That's a very hard goal. Like, you know what those words are. The word count is in your document. But what I've found is that sometimes I can sit down and I'm working on a piece or whatever, and I will be there for 4 or 5 hours, and absolutely nothing is really coming out. It's just playing with different ideas and starting and stopping and throwing things away, and then sometimes landing on something, going, cool, I can get here, right? And I'll stay with that for 1,000 words, 1,500 words, and then realize that it's doggy poopy, because I was trying to get the word count. I wasn't trying to get out the story. I wasn't trying to get out the beat. And deadlines are really good for keeping us focused and motivated and moving forward, because we have to learn how to manage that little chunk of time.
Which you and I talked about last night, because I technically didn't have a deadline because I self-published, but I know you've had them in the past. And honestly, for me, that sounds so overwhelming. But I know that there are people that work really well with that, where you're like, okay, here's my deadline, and I have to do, like, I think John does that, where he has like certain amount of words he gets done every day, and he always waits until it gets close to his deadline.
Yeah, so yes, some people work like that, and then other people work on the way I work is, all right, I'm gonna work on this for 3-ish hours today, and every now and then I hit like a creative artery, and I'm just like, oh cool, I'm gonna take all this creative blood and just like not let it spray all over everything. I'm just gonna sort of like phrasing. I'm gonna like, and I'm gonna capture this blood, and then I'm gonna turn it into something useful. When I discover that something is doggy poopy, I used to really beat myself up, like, oh, you're so stupid, you wasted all your time on this. But like, you know, it's practice, it's working out, it's going to the gym, it's warming up and running laps around the track, or, you know, choose your metaphor. It's just our creative selves. I think that creativity is so misunderstood by people, because to people who are not creative, it is like, it's indistinguishable from magic. And it just seems like something that is so unattainable for them, and it is so mysterious that they trick themselves into thinking, oh, I guess you just do it. And
that you do it well from the beginning, because even Bob Ross has talked, I don't remember if I saw him on a documentary, I can't remember what it was, but when Bob Ross would do a painting for an episode, he had already painted it a dozen times before. So it looks like it totally comes natural to him. He's just like, I have no doubt that the entire time he was very much enjoying painting the happy little trees, but he was so, it looked so natural to him because he had already done it a dozen times. And when you're writing a thing, and this happened to me when I was writing Piggy and Pug, that we're writing, you're kind of just like putting a bunch out there until you're like, oh, this is how the little tree is going to look. Like you have to, man, I have to work around to get to it.
I have painted so many horrible trees, just so many, just thousands of terrible trees, so that I could get like 6 or 7 really good ones on one painting. It's just a very long and very complicated way of saying that when you get stuff that just doesn't work,
it's okay.
It's really okay. It might not feel like it's great, okay, but you could think of it, if you wanted to, as something that you can turn into, metaphorically, compost to nourish the creative seeds that you have already planted in that garden. And I'm just going to let you think about that and apply it to your life as is appropriate. Terry asks, what are your thoughts in using AI in writing? How do we set boundaries in this area?
I would like to say something about that, because I actually was just reading about how destructive to the environment AI is. That is horrifying, and the biggest environmental dump on that is Google. Google's using AI for anytime you Google a thing, the first thing that pops up now is their AI response. But also AI is trained based off of someone's actual creative hard work, whether it's photography, writing, whatever it is, illustrations. And that is horrifying to me. I personally would not use it because of the environment and from how it trains off of other people's hard work. And then that person who actually did the hard work is not compensated.
I think the question you need to ask yourself is, what are you hoping to accomplish by working with AI? as part of your creative process. What particular piece of the fundamental creative structure is the AI going to replace? And when I ask myself that question, it kind of comes up to like, all right, so maybe I would use it to develop writing prompts. Well, a person can do that. And there are people who make a living doing that. And that's where I'm going to go for that. Okay. I can use it to be a research assistant. Okay, that's a little less gross than like, stealing someone's creative idea. But here's the thing about that. Those of us who are old enough to remember actually going into a physical library to do research for anything at all, remember going through the card catalog and seeing something else that you weren't there to look for, that inspired you, that excited you, that was the foundation for something years later that you didn't even realize at the time. You went back into the stacks and you were looking for whatever it is that you wanted to use. And here you find it. You found all these other things. Yes, Bonnie, I can also smell the card catalog. There is a very particular chemical smell that comes from the decomposition of very old paper. And it is it's a soporific for human beings, and it is calming and soothing to us. This is a scientifically proven fact. This is why when we walk into libraries and bookstores, we get a sense of calm. It's a true thing. It's a real thing that happens. Look it up. Don't use AI. So what concerns me about AI is that it's never going away, and we have to figure out a way to get people to be ethical and responsible about it. That is way outside of my area of expertise. My concern as a parent, as the godfather of a now 12-year-old, as a 50-year-old who is aging in a world where kids, I'm in my 50s, settle down, where there's, we're in this world where younger generations who are going to be making policies that affect us, the next generation of artists, may grow up in a world where they are so dependent on the magic computer box doing stuff for them that they never have that opportunity to interact with something directly, even at Wikipedia, where they go off on other things. How many times have you lost hours because you went to Wikipedia for one thing and just started following links? You're like, this is amazing, So I don't really know what the answer is to that. I don't know how we move forward with that responsibly. I would encourage everyone, particularly younger people, to really stay the heck away from it, because it is at a point now where we don't know enough about it. It seems shiny and kind of fun. It can be fun to play around with some of those image generating things just for yourself. I would never publish them. But when you become dependent on that and then it's gone, you're like the humans in WALL-E, and nobody wants to be like that.
I wonder if it's gonna. The biggest thing is the environmental impact. I don't know how they can fix that. But when our kids were young, and how much they started to be encouraged to have calculators. And we were like, hold on.
Yeah, right.
You're not going to learn the math.
Hey, Mrs. Miller, I do have a calculator with me all the fucking time, by the way. And I use it for division. And multiplication. I don't do it in my head like you told me I would have to. I'm right. You lose.
I still will do some things, and I'm like, no, I'm going to keep that skill going. I'm going to, add shit up on my own. But yeah, I remember the concern of kids are going to lose that. And then when computers were more prevalent, then kids are losing the ability to write in cursive. Right. Because we were taught to write that way.
Parents are passing coded notes to each other just by writing them in cursive, and their elementary school kids.
They'll never know. They'll never know.
I love it. Hey, Charlie, I see that we're coming up on the hour, and I just thought that we should go. There's really great questions.
There's great questions.
I thought maybe we could just go through these.
Love it.
And answer them before we get into our breakouts. Okay. I'm going to do my best to not answer these in 1,000-word blocks. We'll keep these nice and
You
nice
can do
and
it
tight.
like your convention thing,
Lightning
where
round?
your lightning
Okay.
round. Okay.
Gwen, can you each explain more about what systems, if any, you use when planning out a story? I think we kind of covered that.
Yeah.
I would, this little trick that I use is I will write down, I learned this from Ed Brubaker, the comic book writer. When he's going to write a comic book, he knows that he gets 22 pages per story. And what he does is he writes down numbers 1 through 22. And then on each line, this is what happens on this page. This is what happens to move the story forward. It's a way of doing an outline so that now he knows, okay, this is how much time I have to build to this beat. And I'm going to use this to get to that beat. I do something similar. I write beats down on index cards and Post-it notes and stuff. There's a software called Scrivener that lots of writers I know use. And apparently, if you know how to use it, it's incredibly powerful and useful. For me, I'm still in a real analog place with my creativity.
There ain't no calculators. Oh, I guess there is a calculator.
There's a
A lot to say about the calculator. Okay, next question.
Lou has a Star Trek question for me. What are your favorite storylines from Star Trek: The Next Generation? You know, I really love the stories that we did that were about the very, very big questions. I'm blanking on the title of the episode. The Offspring with Lal, Data's daughter. Somebody in chat knows what that one's called. I'm pretty sure it's called The Offspring.
Do I have to take away your nerd cred?
You absolutely do not get to take away my nerd cred. I still outrank you.
Okay, good.
The Measure of a Man talked about autonomy and thank you, Brian. It is called The Offspring.
Hey.
The Inner Light made us think about the nature of reality and like, what would you do if you had an opportunity to live an entire life and then pop right back into your own reality? Those were the ones that I really loved. There are ones that were fun, you know, that were just fun, rollicking adventures. But the ones that really challenge us are the ones that I feel like, okay, that's Star Trek doing Star Trek really, really well.
Lightning.
Chris, as a storyteller, do you consume books and how do you consume books? I'm going to start over again. Take two.
There we go.
This is from Chris. Thank you. As a storyteller, how do you consume books and stories for fun and not worry that a scene or a dialogue will stick in your brain and end up in something you've written without realizing it? I used to worry about this a lot. I would be really, really careful. I would read something and I'd get an idea, and then I would be like, "You can't do that idea. You stole it."
Yes, stole it.
Everything's stolen. I don't worry about it anymore. I just don't. I know that once something comes through the creative engine inside of me and turns out into a thing, all of the me of the whole thing is going to change it enough that it now becomes mine. I love it when I read something and it makes me ask a question. Oh, what if this happened? Or I want to know more about that character. And sometimes I'll make a little note in a notebook or something like that and maybe go back to it. But I don't spend any time thinking about how will, like, this thing that I'm reading for fun, and it happens with audiobooks all the time. I read tons of books for work. I just treat it as input, creative input. It's always coming in, and everything we use nourishes and inspires our own ideas. Has that ever been anything for you?
So I remember I was like almost done working with my illustrator with all of the images, and then I saw online that there was an actual pig and pug that were friends.
Amazing.
Do you remember that? That I was like, oh my God, it's real. And then I was afraid that someone would think that I wrote this entire story based off of these two actual animals that became friends. And then the other thing was when I was doing my ISBN thing and then registering my title, that I wanted Piggy and Pug. And then there's an author in Australia that has one called Pig the Pug. And then I was mortified, like, am I doing something that's the same? But that one is actually, the whole premise is it's this like pug dog that overeats.
Oh, that's adorable.
And a little, I don't know, that was odd, but I was like,
wait, is it like fat shaming?
I don't know. it was, I just remember seeing that image and he's like in front of this huge pile of like spaghetti and meatballs and I don't know what it was. I'm not sure. Maybe it's adorable that he's overeating. I'm not sure.
I think in the
Anyway,
absence of any confirmation, we should all just choose that this is an
It's
adorable
delightful.
story that brings
It's
joy to
delightful.
everyone who
Yeah,
reads it.
so I was worried that something I was doing was copying somebody else, but it turns out it wasn't at all. And also, I don't know, I think like I said earlier, we all have similar experiences. And as long as you're not like copying word for word from something, I mean, I think that, who is it that said like copying someone is a form of flattery?
Lots of people. It's someone who got caught copying.
Oh,
That thing about how great artists
totally,
steal
yeah. Oh, yeah.
is
Okay.
extremely relevant.
I didn't want to steal,
Okay.
especially on my first. Okay, here we go.
All right. So I'm American, so I think your name is Karen, but you appear to be Kareen. I don't want to say your name wrong, and I apologize for mangling your name, but you have a wonderful question. When my daughter writes, the characters sometimes go in directions she hadn't imagined. That's the most amazing thing. It feels like she has no control over them sometimes, like they take on a life of their own. I find that amazing. Does that happen to you too? Yes, it does. And it is absolutely the greatest thing in the world. When I am writing a scene and I realize that I'm listening to the characters and I'm just transcribing what they're talking about, I feel it's easy. It's so fun. It's so great to be in the audience for that thing that is happening, with the knowledge that I'm going to get to go back to this after they're done talking and they've left. And I'm going to get to sort of like tweak this a little bit so that it more effectively represents the thing that I wanted them to do in the first place. Yes, that does happen. And it's absolutely fantastic. Fabio, did you have anything to add to that?
Nope.
Fabio, how do you balance enjoying the process versus pressure to deliver a final thing? What is more important to you? What is art for you? Oh man, that is a big, big, big question. I promised that Watson was going to come around, so here he is. Hi. Hi, buddy. Oh, he's so mad that I picked him up. He's so mad that I picked him up. Here, I'm just going to bring him right up here. Yeah, look, see how much he's loving it? Yeah, he's having a really good time. You go sit with your girlfriend. There you go.
My boyfriend's here. Yay.
So
here we go.
There are times where it is not fun at all. There are times where I am in my office and I have my door closed because I don't want this energy to spill out into the house and affect my family. But I'm tense and I'm tight and I can't breathe and I'm pacing and I'm sitting down and starting and stopping and then and it's horrible. And I only stay in that place when I've badly managed my time, and what I am reacting to is I don't have the time to sit back and enjoy this. It's so much better to actually make the time to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it. We have this idea. There's this Calvinist streak that still infects American culture, where we're supposed to you're not supposed to like your job. It's your job. You're supposed to work really hard, and if you're working really hard and you're miserable, then you're
but at the
doing
same time, do what you love.
Doing it all right. But yeah, and it's just, I feel like that's such a unnecessary and inefficient way of doing anything at all. When I am enjoying it, it's so easy. Yeah, the Protestant work ethic is bullshit. When I am having fun, it's easy, and I can't wait to get back to it the next day. I use this trick that I learned from Cory Doctorow of stopping in the middle of a sentence and coming back to get right back into that fun. It feels like a party, and it is the memory of those times that focuses me through those other times where I'm standing in my office and I'm just like this, and I'm just, I can't get it. I'm stuck and it's awful and everybody hates me and I'm a fraud and it's all of that stuff. And that is not conducive to good writing. The writing feels like that when it all comes out. Sam, our good friend Sam, we love you. We have been Sam's internet parents forever. Sam is a wonderful photographer. You can find her on Instagram at Sam is Rocking. She shoots concerts that I am always envious that she gets to go to. Sam asks, how do you guys handle feedback and criticism from editors, readers, and other writers? A really good question. That's a really great place for us to wrap up our Q&A. One of the most important skills every person can get, every single person, without regard to what you're doing for your work, or your creative satisfaction. Every single person, I want you to understand and learn to recognize the difference between feedback that is constructive, criticism that is honest and helpful, and what is a person just being a dick because they're having a bad day.
I heard someone once say, don't take advice. Don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't go to for advice. That's what it was.
Yeah. We live in a moment, and Sam, you've come of age in a world where everybody's got their opinion and they're shoving it in your face and then demanding you answer that. Has anybody else experienced this? Someone storms into your social media, whatever, and like, it's just like, in dancehall culture, they call it come charge bulbucka, where they just sort of like, yeah, I know. And they just sort of come in like with their chest out looking for a fight, and then like yell at you for not answering them. And it's just like, what are you doing? Like, none of what you're doing is helpful, right? There's criticism and feedback that comes like that as well. The other side of that is when you are working for someone, when you turn in to an editor and they give you feedback and they give you criticism, they are not looking to punch you in the face and knock you down and neg your work. They want you to be the very best you can be. They want to help you get your work to a place where they and their colleagues really don't have to do very much to turn what you gave them into what the audience, their audience, is expecting and is ready to receive. So it's so important to separate what is useful criticism of work that's just about helping get it a little bit better from me feeling bad about myself because I got a little bit of feedback that this beat didn't work. And now I've decided that because this beat didn't work, I'm actually terrible at everything, and I've fooled everyone to this point, and this is the only person who can see through. Yes, yeah, Shaky Dick 29 on Instagram is the one who absolutely knows what's going on in my world.
And that's when, especially with anything online, any criticism online, the word that I cannot stand is should. You know what you should do. You know where you should go. You know what I think you should do. It's just like, oh my God, I don't want that word to exist anymore. I want you to shut. Okay.
I have lived with this woman for over 30 years and learned to remove the word should from my vocabulary.
Some words don't need
April,
to be
you're
uttered.
absolutely right. I would like, if I may, I want to speak to the men in the room, and I know that most of you don't need to hear this, but it's a good thing. The women in our lives are so much smarter than we are. They have endured so much more bullshit than we have. They are so much more insightful than we are. Just be quiet and listen and learn, and you're gonna be a better person because of it.
Wow.
That is just an absolute fact. Every time you encounter a woman in a position in business, you have no idea how much harder she had to work than a mediocre dude to get that gig. So listen, surround yourselves, creative people. Surround yourselves with creative people. This is good life advice. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to do great things, who celebrate you when you do great things, who you want to celebrate when they do great things. Create and participate in a feedback loop of inspiration and support. You deserve that. They deserve that. If you're a creative person, that is going to nurture your creative garden, and it is going to just absolutely thrive. And even if we're not talking about creativity, that's a great place to be in life, especially right now. I end every episode of my podcast saying, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And I mean that. We are very much person to person connections in this moment, more than any time in my life, are so incredibly important. Your neighbors, the people who live in your building who you never talk to, say hi to them in the hallway and get to know them a little bit. We all have to look out for each other right now, because this is eventually, at least in the United States, we are on a crash course to it is going to be we the people against really, really bad folks. And when we have built those connections amongst ourselves, we are so ready to take on anything that comes at us.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anne and Will. Wow, that was incredible. From looking at the flaws versus the beauty in sculpture, and Anne, the story of how you came up with personal stories and wanting to put personal stories that matter in the world. And the chat, this whole group of people that's showed up are all in the same boat. We're all looking out for each other. So I appreciate you guys sharing that message, asking for empathy, asking for personal and vulnerable spaces. This is yeah, thank you so much. This has been incredible. And thanks to everyone who joined. So we're going to move on to meet and greets. These little breakouts here. I don't know if you guys need to take a quick break too before we move on. That's okay too. We can get things organized a little bit here. But thanks again. This has been so helpful. I mean, we have a number of resources we'll try to send out as well that you guys talked about. Ed Brubaker, the Austin Kleon pieces, and some of these other Scrivener and stuff like that. So we'll send that out as well. But thank you so much.
For the ones that are not sticking around, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
It was really fun. It was scary and new for me, but my host husband made it more comfortable for me.
Host
The
husband.
job of the host is to make the guests feel comfortable so they
That's
can
right.
just
That's right.
do their thing. I want to tell, so yes, I want to just like a really great dude, I'm just going to stand on top of what Anne just said.
Does it sound better when you say it?
It does. It sounds better when I say it. Do you hear it? I absolutely love that you're here. I really, really do. It's fantastic. This has been lovely for me, and I hope it has been for you as well. I thought ahead, I would have put this in the chat so you can just do it now. I didn't, so I didn't. But if you go to willwheaton.net, go to wait about 15 minutes, go to willwheaton.net, and then go to the whatever the newest post is on my blog. I'm going to put an invite link to my Discord in the comments, so there it'll be there for I think I can make it live for like 7 hours or something like that. Anyway, if any of you want to come in and hang out with us, we have lots of creative discussions there. We're building a little creative community and a little lovely supportive community. Some of you are already in, and you know what a great little community we have there. But this has been lovely sharing this with y'all. Your questions are fantastic, and I would just love for you to come be part of our tiny little club. It's just a few hundred people. So go to willwheaton.net and look in the main post at the top. There will be a link there for you to click, and you can share it with your friends too. It'll be good for like 100 uses or something like that.
Yay.
Awesome. Yay. Okay, so willwheaton.net, head there in just a little bit. And yeah, we're going to be holding the meet and greets right here. So I'm going to be ejecting people out of the vehicle at high speed here in about a minute, and bringing everybody in who's gotten.
Relax and roll when you hit the street. It's
Right,
right,
don't lick anybody. Keep your hands to yourself. We're going to get this thing going. And we'll just jump into it once Anne is back. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday or Monday, depending on where you are. Or 20 years from now, who knows what the timing is now.
We hope you've enjoyed this 20 years together.
This has been 20 years of content just now. Okay, great. So I'm going to start bringing people in.